Don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.
Hey everyone, Connie here, and welcome to my blind reaction to Digimon Adventure 2020, episode 19. I think it's 19. Is it 19? It's 19. So last we left off, they finally defeated the Digimon controlling the town, the fake Tokyo and everything, which was affecting real Tokyo. And they managed to pretty much fix everything, but then the timer started again, and Devimon showed up and separated them. Now, we didn't really get to see the exact implications of this, but I was talking last time about how I was hoping that each Digidestined outside of Time Mad, of course, since um, we already saw are together. I was hoping that each of them were separated completely, like no one is with each other, no teams or anything, they're just by themselves. And the reason for this was so that they could use these episodes to grow them before getting them back together. Because let's be honest, Ty and Matt are the two strongest on the team. They're the leaders of the team. And by far, they are the ones who need the least help. And that's not to say that they don't need any help. That's not to say that they're perfect. But they seem to have a better grasp on things. They Oh, excuse me. They seem to have a stronger hold on what it means to work with their Digimon partners in order to get shit done. As you notice, they are the quickest and uh, easiest to get their Digivolutions and stuff. They don't need as much work with it. They don't need to come to some grand realizations as the others tend to do. Um, Usually, like with Ty, it's just, oh, he's protecting his friends, or he's fighting against a strong enemy, and he has to gather up the courage to do so. And kind of the same with Matt. Um, so in the end, it's just like there's not as much effort and time put into it as with, say, Joe or Mimi or Sora, who have to kind of come to realizations about themselves before they can do so. But either way, Devimon's decided, like, okay, these kids are getting in my way too much, so I'm just gonna separate them. Before taunting Ty and Matt right to their faces. And that's kind of where we left off. Um, so we're just under 20 episodes in, and I want to quickly say that they're doing right with this series. Like, I've talked about this before, but I want to talk about it here. They're doing right by this series. When I first went into this, I was honestly unsure of what to expect. I grew up watching Digimon, especially Adventure 01. I grew up with the card game, the video games, all kinds of stuff. Um, and while I would never call myself an expert by any means, and while I would never even say that I had every little bit of knowledge down pat, because I definitely didn't and still don't, um, excuse me, I still enjoyed the series very much, and the idea of it being remade is like concerning. And I think that would go with any series that you're watching that is remade when it's based on a series from your childhood or a series that you just hold in high regard. When any series like that is remade, it concerns you because you're worried that it's not going to be quite the same, that it's not going to hold the same kind of excitement. And I started watching the series, and as you guys know, I started enjoying it, like, very much. It started doing things drastically different from the original, but at the same time, it felt like a smart idea to do so. And it felt really like they were going in this interesting new direction that made it stand out. And I loved it. I love the more modern setting for it, the more modern Tokyo. I loved how the characters have been written. I loved how the story's been progressed. It's just been really good. And even with that, I've still had my worries as we've continued on. Like when we first entered the net space between the main world and the digital world, I was worried that that was going to be what they had because, as I stated at that time, a lot of games and more recent Digimon stuff have had that instead of like an actual digital world with, you know, a world. um, and so I was kind of worried, but no, we got what we wanted. We got an actual digital world, which is more than I can say for Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth, unfortunately. But hey, at least it's somewhat fun still as a game. Mostly fun. There are some issues, but um, yeah. And I was concerned, but at the same time, I grew to love it in a way where it's like that concern kind of melted away. And over time, it just kept getting better and better for me. Like, yeah, even though some of it might feel a little repetitive, I still enjoyed the concepts brought in. I enjoyed the different ways they were handling things, even if they were doing it a little quicker than in the original. I enjoyed seeing the fights, the character moments. It was just fun. Sorry for all the yawning, by the way. I just woke up, so. But I had said it before, and I think one of the best ways to put it is that Digimon Adventure 2020 I is what I rem, is ha, bleh. Digimon Adventure 2020 is as good as I remember the original Adventure 01 being. And what I mean by that, as a reminder, because I hadn't brought this up for a while, this idea, is that we have this nostalgic sense to our brains where it's like we see nostalgic things in a better light than it actually might have been. Um, that's why you'll sometimes go back and check out things that you used to watch as a kid and find out that it didn't hold up as well. That, yeah, as a kid you enjoyed it, but when you watch it as an adult, it's like, oh, why did I enjoy that? Like, the writing is terrible, the dialogue is terrible. This character is just terrible. It's not good. Why did I enjoy this? I've faced that many times. And it's like, looking back on it, I just can't explain what the reason for that is. But it's like, when I think about how much I used to enjoy Digimon growing up, and then I've gone back and watched certain parts of it, like here and there, randomly, and it's just like, it didn't capture my love and attention as much as it used to, or as much as I remember it having done in the past. But this series is doing that for me. This series is catching my attention like I remember Digimon Adventure 01 catching my attention. It is exciting me that much. It is as good as I remember, as my nostalgia makes me feel the original Digimon Adventure 01 was. even if it might not have aged as well as other shows or movies or whatever else. And that's impressive to me. That's really impressive to me, and I love seeing that kind of thing. When a show can be remade and reinvigorated in such a way that it actually gets me this excited, it's like, yeah, that's what I want. So, either way, um, now one other thing to note is like I said, we're just under 20 episodes in, and we're still in the first arc. In the original anime, this arc would have been over already because this arc only lasted until like I think episode 13 or 14. Um, but they've definitely grown it out, and obviously adding in the ultimate evolutions and everything this early has definitely expanded this arc. But they're also stretching things out a little differently too, in regards to how everything's being introduced. Because one big thing with is with the introduction of characters, like because they didn't really have to do that as much in the original because all the characters were already there from the summer camp. But in this one, they meet up with all the characters, and TK still hasn't even actually arrived in the digital world yet. So it's like we're still missing one of the core Digidestined, and it's going to be interesting to see how that is implemented. I mean, that's pretty much like one of the biggest things we have going on right now. We've gotten these hints, seen little bits of TK, and we have not like introduced him into the group yet. But we're going to soon. We've got to because the new outro focuses heavily on him. Um, but yeah, it's like they're building it up in a much different way, and in a way that I can kind of appreciate more. Because instead of just having them there all from the beginning and like going into their characters as time goes on, like the original did, this one's like, no, we're just going to introduce them bit by bit, and we're going to work on their characters in that way by introducing them to work on their characters and then progressively going more into it as time goes on. And I'm okay with that. Um, so obviously, I have no idea where this episode is going to go. I have no idea what they're going to do with the group split up. I'm hoping that we focus on showing where everyone is. We don't have to actually focus heavily on everyone in this episode, obviously, but I at least want to like see where everyone's at after the attack by Devimon. Um, but it's going to be interesting to see exactly what happens as well because there was a moment similar to this in the original series where Devimon separated the Digidestined. But he separated all of them. Matt and Ty weren't together. And also, it was done quite differently and for different reasons. Like they were in a mansion or something beforehand. Um, I don't remember all the context behind it at all. But yeah, they were in some kind of mansion, and Devimon separated them from there. Um, so plus I think at that point Devimon was actually like really introduced more so than he has been here. So that's a difference as well. I don't know. Anyway, it's been a while since I've seen the original, so we'll just have to go off the little bits I know. I'm excited. I'm excited to get to more of this. I think. Let me check something real quick because I think that there might be an actual episode count on this now. Yes, there is an official episode count on my anime list for Digimon Adventure 2020. It is set for 66 episodes, which is a very interesting and specific number. Um, 66 episodes. we're still in the middle of the first arc, or at least nearing the end, maybe. Um, but there's like two more arcs, I believe, after this in the yeah, there's two more arcs in Digimon Adventure 01. There's Myotismon, and then there's the Digimon Emperors, I believe they're called. Or no, the Masters. I think they're called the Digimon Masters or something like that. Piedmon and Metal Seedramon and all them, Puppetmon. Um, and I believe there was one like called Apocalypmon or something like that at the very end, but it's like that one was barely given any time anyway. Um, but it's like the Myotismon one I would think would be longer than Devimon, and we're already nearing the 1/3 mark of this series. Because think about it. There's 66 episodes total, and 22 would be the 1/3 mark, and we're at 19 now. So unless they're going to finish this up quickly, and either way, this would mean that they're probably going to aim for about even arcs, like evenly paced arcs, which is going to be interesting because I would think they could do more with the Myotis Monarch. I don't know. We'll have to see. Um, because there's going to be a lot more interesting stuff going on in that one. And then the Digimon Emperors or Masters or whatever they're called, that arc is going to. I feel like that one would need a bit of time too, but maybe I'm wrong. It's just like I was expecting a little more than 66 episodes. I was thinking more like somewhere in the 70s. Um, but if they can make this work, then hell, all the power to them. It is just with this arc being longer than it normally was and everything and having a lot more drawn out stuff, I'm just wondering like where they're gonna go with it, especially at this point because um, there's a lot that still needs to happen. I feel like we haven't gotten introduced to Leomon yet. He's only been mentioned, and him having a resistance has been mentioned. Um, I at this point I don't think we're doing Black Gears. At this point, I think that's kind of thrown out the window. They kind of replaced it with the Soundbird Mon thing, which honestly I will say that is one thing I will say is weaker than the original series. I think the Black Gears were a better idea than Soundbird Mon. Um, but they've got to meet Leomon. They've got to meet this resistance that had been talked about. We got to get everyone back together. We got to fight Devimon, which of course is going to require TK and Patamon. Um, if they're going to do it in the same way, TK is also going to have Patamon digivolve to Angemon. And in the original, that took some time because he was the last one to unlock a Digivolution in any way. So, how's this going to work? How are they going to pace that out this time? I don't know. There's like so many questions and so many ways they could do this, I feel. But I feel like they almost got to be nearing the end of this arc. Just in order to fit all three of these main Adventure 01 arcs, they would have to be getting near the end of this one at this point. Unless they're cutting down the other arcs, which I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. I'm just a little concerned. Either way, we're just gonna get this started, hope for the best, and see what happens. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Uh, Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. That being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in three, two, one, now. So yeah, going off of what I was saying at the end, with TK Takeru showing up at the end, with him being in the tube, um, it had to have been Devimon that brought him over, right? Because we saw Devimon can uh, transport things between worlds. He yeeted most of the chosen ones to the real world without their Digimon partners, apparently. Unless they are there too and they're just separated even more. Um, so that means it was probably at that same time that he brought Takeru over. Um, which also, by the way, very much confirms that Patamon slash Angemon is the Holy Digimon. Like, that was my initial guess. Also, dog might start barking, just letting you know. Um, that was my initial guess that it was going to be Patamon slash Angemon because of the connection to Devimon in the original series. Also, for obvious reasons with Angemon. um, but then I started to kind of maybe second guess it a little bit. But now this blatantly confirms it. Because they had this cargo that was directly connected to the Holy Digimon, and it just happens to be Takeru. It's like, oh yeah, we know exactly what that means. Also, Matt's reaction to that, just the shock and kind of horror in a way, like when he first saw him, it's like, yeah, very nice. I really think that was a good reaction. It was very fitting for Matt, who adores Takeru. So yeah, I really liked how that was handled. Um, I also really liked Minotaurmon's little warning at the end. It's like you at your level, you guys are not prepared for what's coming. And it's like that was a really good setup threat. Like you see those kind of things in all kinds of different shows and movies and even games and stuff, where it's like a villain that's just defeated will set something up for the future that's even stronger by saying something like that. Like you guys are not prepared for what's to come. And it's like I've always loved that trope. It's like it's one of those tropes that I feel like pretty much always works. The only way to fuck it up is by having what is to come not be as strong or threatening. Like that is the only way. But the thing is, we kind of already know who the main enemy of this arc is. It's Devimon. So it's like we already know that this enemy is super threatening. Um, and on top of that, it's like we don't know if that's actually what he was talking about. He could have been talking about something else because we did see something else in those silhouetted figures that Devimon had, I guess, uh, maybe taken control of at that point. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Um, but yeah, so Ty and Matt are very close at this point to getting the Holy Digimon found. They've teamed up with Leomon and the Resistance. They found Takeru in the enemy's grip and have been straight up told that Takeru is uh, strongly connected to the Holy Digimon. So I'm assuming within the next two episodes, we're going to have Patamon be introduced. We're going to have Patamon be introduced. We're probably not going to get Angemon right away for obvious reason. We're probably not going to actually get Angemon until the final fight with Devimon. Um, like how they did it in the original series, unless they really do change things up even more again, which is possible. Um, but yeah, we're probably gonna get Patamon within these next two episodes because we've now got Takeru there. Um, it's gonna be interesting to see how that all connects and everything. Meanwhile, in the real world, the rest of the chosen ones are like convened with Hikari, while her and Ty's mother, goes to get the car. Um, she saw what happened. She knows what happened with them. Is she gonna bring it up to them? And is she gonna talk about their Digimon with them? Like, I'm genuinely curious about that. Because even if they don't bring her into play again right yet, or if they don't bring her into play right yet, in this series, this reboot and everything, it's still setting stuff up for her. It's still setting things up for when she does come into play. Um, if they do bring her into play, like, she's probably still not going to get Gatomon for a while. Um, because again, Gatomon is directly connected to the next arc. As long as, again, as long as they keep that from the original series, we'll have to see on that. It's hard to say. It's just, I love the way they're doing Devimon in the series compared to the original. He seems so much more threatening, so much more menacing, and even so much more powerful. And he was powerful in the original, mind you, and even he did even have a threatening aura. But looking back on it, not as a kid, he wasn't as intimidating. Like, he was still intimidating, just not as much so. It's like, of course, I mean, the original series, like, even with all its mature themes and shit, was still made for kids. Like, you could technically say this one is too, but this one is handling it better. I feel like they're making him to feel much more like a legitimate threat. So on the original, it's like, yeah, he was threatening for sure, but it still felt like a kids show. You know what I mean? It felt like a kids show threatening villain. Like, they just didn't go as far as they could have. But in this one, they definitely are making it see. They're definitely working a lot more on making him frightening, um, which I appreciate. Um, and on top of it, they're just building him up a lot more. Because again, as I said, by this point, the first arc, I believe, in '01 was already finished. So it's like they're really building him up in a way that makes him feel more like a true force of evil for them to fight and defeat. Building up the Holy Digimon in this way as well, with Takeru's introduction in the way that they're doing it. Like, they're really handling that extremely well, and I couldn't be happier with that. Um, I liked seeing some other Digimon I recognized in this one, like Pekmon, um, just because it's like, I don't think I remember ever seeing Pekmon in the original, but at the same time, it's like I might have. I don't know. It's been a long time. Um, but I definitely remember him just from playing Cyber Sleuth and everything. And I remember when I first saw him in Cyber Sleuth, it's like, oh, you're interesting. You're like a ninja bird. It's like, okay, ninja ostrich thing. Um, and it has some interesting evolution lines with it. So yeah, there's that. Um, but yeah, I just really enjoyed this episode. Like, this was just a really solid episode. From the introduction of Leomon, the attack on the enemy base, the introduction of Takeru being the cargo and everything. It's like it just really solidly hit on every note. The fact that Devimon can yeet people into the real world, that's actually importantly big information. How are they going to get back, for one? And for two, where are their Digimon partners? We still don't know that. So it's like, yeah, that's actually a big deal that Devimon can do that. Because if he could do that, like, what else can he do? You have to wonder. We'll probably find out, of course. Um, but yeah, I'm really excited now because this, I don't know, between the last few episodes with that entire arc with the fake Tokyo and now this episode, it feels like this series is finally starting to really get started. Like all the episodes prior to this were almost felt like setup. Like, okay, we get to the digital world, we start like unlocking our evolutions. Um, we're learning about the characters a little more, but then shit goes down, and now we're finally actually getting into the meat of the story. That's what it feels like. And I and while that's insane for it to take almost a third of the series to actually get started like this, I actually don't mind because again, they introduce certain concepts a lot quicker than they did in the original, especially certain evolutions and all. A lot of the story is definitely being handled in a very unique, different way, and all in all, it's doing its best to make sure that you understand this is like big stakes and everything. That you understand exactly how important everything is, and it makes you like come to terms with every decision made, every attack, every action, and it feels right. You know what I mean? It just feels right to do it this way. But again, as I said in the pre-thoughts, with 66 episodes, it's like, how are they going to split this up with the other two arcs? Because I would think the next arc would they would want to make the longest, honestly, because it's just that big of a deal. Which means at this point, either they would have to end this arc soon, or they would probably have to cut back on the third arc, the Digimon Emperors or whatever they're called. I still can't remember exactly. I remember them for the most part, but yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. Um, as this is going, like I honestly have faith that this is going to end up being very, very good in the end. And I'm very excited to see what they do with future stuff, especially the next arc. The next arc was always my favorites in the original series in '01. So, yeah. Um, but either way, uh, tell me in the comments below what you thought of this episode of Digimon Adventure 2020. And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.